Hello everybody, this is Gregory with Permanent Weight Loss Made Easy, where there should be no hesitance in your weight loss and in your weight maintenance. Now today we're going to talk about enduring, persevering, perduring to the end, and how to deal with feelings that you're not going to succeed. Now before I begin, if you need help with weight loss, contact me through the Clarity FM link found here in the episode notes. Check out my 2 books, which you can find on Amazon. They might help you. My podcast, The Awakened Man, which is very health related. My website, which has hundreds of articles and recipes, and my movie podcast, The Cinema Rag, which you might like if you like movies. And lastly, if you appreciate my content, there is a link for PayPal. I talk about my personal playlist here on Confessions of an Obese Shot on the penultimate episode. I think there's 20 episodes about my feelings of suicidal ideation, even the fact that I tried to take my life at the apex of my obesity back, 1990. And so I know what you're going through. And it can be bleak. It can be bleak. I remember even post-weight loss, just every day, calorie in, calorie outing. Especially if I was going through a very stressful time in my life. Just working out in the morning, running in the morning, and then afterwards just like running to binge eat. It's like I couldn't binge eat until I calorie outed first. Because calorie inning and then calorie outing is hard. It's hard to work out when you got a very full stomach. And I just did that for weeks, if not years of calorie in, calorie outing. Most of those years, this would be in my 20s, I kept my weight off because I was in my 20s and I was doing a lot of calorie outing. But I felt enslaved. I felt enslaved to the binging. I felt enslaved to my self-shame and my self-loathing, which then fed into the binging. Kind of reminds me of what St. Paul talks about in Romans. If you read like Romans chapters 7 through 9, I always like that part because he talks about the battle between the flesh and the spirit. And he later talks about that in Galatians chapter 5, where he talks about the works of the flesh and the fruits of the spirit. But that's a separate topic because that's more like the fruits of the spirit are like kindness and generosity and love, and the works of the flesh are adultery and anger and party spirit and strife and all that. But going back to Romans 7:9, he talks about like how if we indulge in our vices and our concupiscence, it just buries us even more. So the more we sin, the more we're buried underneath it. And conversely, the more that we practice virtue, it almost builds up like a credit, like a store of credit, so we're less likely to lapse into sin. And it's kind of the same thing when it comes to disordered eating. And like if you're in a situation where you're just really overweight because you're just eating very badly, it's kind of the same thing. It's just day in, day out. Day in, day out. Every day is a victory. Kind of like the way alcoholics have to look at it. Don't think of it as like, I got to lose 50 pounds and then try to keep it off for the next 30 years. See it as one day at a time. And I know that's so cliche. It's so cliche, but it's true. If you look at it as like, I got to lose 50 pounds, then you're going to get disheartened. You're going to get depressed because that's very difficult. It's kind of like here and on the Christian channel and then my podcast, I had to do something like 1,000 episodes a year between those 4, just those 4. And if I saw it that way, I'd be like on January 1st, I'd be like, okay, day 1. I got 1,000 of these to do. It'd just be way too hard. It would just be way too hard. So you take it one day at a time, one day at a time. Just try to get through one day without disordered eating, binge eating and all that. Try to exercise, walk, try to eat the best you can, stay off the liquid calories, stay off the alcohol. And if you have success, that's great. Go to day 2. Go to day 3. And you start building up a credit, kind of like with the virtue. You start building up the virtue, the credit. And it almost inoculates you. It makes it easier for you for the next day to do it because you have momentum. And you're less likely to slide. Doesn't mean you won't. You could have 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Kind of like the old Paula Abdul song, Opposites Attract. That can happen. But as a whole, that's the mindset you have to have. I mean, the overall greater mindset is, of course, to purge your disordered eating, to go to the childhood trauma that made you go to food to soothe your pain or to give you nurturance, whatnot. Because if you don't do that, all these are just stopgap approaches, stopgap measures. The water's filling up in the boat, and you got a little pail, and you might be able to keep it up, but eventually you can't. So you got to do the deep work. But in the meanwhile, it's just one day at a time. That's all you can do. That's what I did. That's what everyone will tell you to do. One day at a time. Don't think of it 1 year at a time, even after you lose the weight, which you will. You can't be like, okay, I lost my weight. All right, now I got to keep this off for 30 years. It's just, it'll overwhelm you. One day at a time, guys. Post in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care. God bless and pray.